Hi there, so today we are going to be looking at drawing a two-point perspective street view. This is a technique that is really useful both in art and DT and also just day-to-day life to be able to make sure that your drawings look 3D, they look accurate and they show depth in a scene. So what I'm going to be doing is I've just got a piece of paper, a pencil, I've got an eraser on the end of my pencil. If you've got a spare, like a separate eraser or rubber, that's fine. And a ruler. It's really important though that your ruler is big enough that it will fill the entire piece of paper because you need to be able to draw right the way across. So I've got my piece of paper here, I've got it horizontal on my work surface because I'm going to be drawing my street view as a landscape view. I'm going to position my ruler about halfway up my piece of paper and I'm going to draw a horizontal line across the middle. Now I can check that my line is going to be horizontal by placing the end of my ruler, the flat end just here, against the edge of my piece of paper, just there, just to make sure that my line is roughly horizontal, which is looking quite good. So, because this is two-point perspective, my street view is going to have two different vanishing points, and these are going to sit on this horizontal line. This horizontal line here is called the horizon line. It is basically this line at which the sky, which is sort of this area here, is meeting the ground, which is this area here. Our buildings will be across the middle of this line, but it's important that you know where this line should be placed. So as I said, two vanishing points. These are going to be placed on the horizon line. So I'm going to start with one over here. I'm going to mark it with a cross and just put another cross over here. So I've got 1 and 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to label the left one VP1 because that's vanishing point 1 and then VP2. So I've got my horizon line and my two vanishing points, and my horizon line is roughly halfway up my page. Then I'm going to draw the first corner line of any building. So what I'm going to do is my street view is actually going to be going in two directions. One direction towards vanishing point 1 and one towards vanishing point 2. So what I'm going to need to do is draw the street corner, which will be roughly somewhere in the centre of my page. So using my ruler, I'm going to line the top of my ruler up with the top of my piece of paper, just up here. This is going to be a vertical line. It should be perpendicular to the horizon line, so it should have a 90-degree angle here roughly. I'm just going to draw a line not all the way from the top to the bottom, but roughly going nearly to the top, nearly to the bottom there, and that is my first transverse line. Now, transverse lines are usually vertical in your perspective drawings. They're present in a one-point perspective and a two-point perspective drawing. A transverse line, like I say, is vertical, so this is usually the edges of your buildings, the sides of a door or window, and that sort of thing. So this is a guideline for the corner of the building that is closest to me, because as the buildings get closer to the vanishing point, they actually get further away, so they will look smaller. What I'm going to do to give myself a guideline for where the bottom of all of my buildings are going to be, because that's where the pavement will be, I'm going to join my vanishing point 1 to the bottom of this corner edge. So this line here is going to be the corner of my first building, and this line here is going to be roughly where it meets the floor. I'll do the same over here. Now I recommend drawing these lines quite lightly so that you can rub them out for any bits that you don't need. I'm drawing mine a bit darker just so that you can see them. Again, at the top here, I'm going to mark in roughly where the roofs are going to be. So my vanishing points are from the top of my building, and this is the top corner of my building, down to the vanishing point. These lines here that I have drawn that are going to either of the vanishing points, those are called orthogonal lines. Orthogonal lines are lines that usually will join transverse lines to a vanishing point. So they will usually be the tops and bottoms of windows, the roofs of your buildings, and things like that. So that's my guideline. Now I can start putting in buildings, and to do that, what I'm going to do is use a number of transverse lines at different intervals across the page to lay out where the buildings are going to be. And I'm also going to leave some space between some of them so that I can add in alleyways. So I'm just going to add in some vertical transverse lines to break up my scene and then rub out any bits of these guidelines here that I perhaps don't need. Okay, so I've marked in the shapes of my buildings, and you can see that I have erased the top and the bottom areas of the guideline that I drew earlier in between the spaces. So these two buildings are touching each other, they don't have a space in between, but I have included spaces here, and those are going to be alleyways. To show the alleyway, I need to basically show the side of the building, and that line is going to go roughly in this direction. But the way to make it accurate is to make sure that that line leads directly towards the opposite vanishing point. So you'll see that this building, the bottom and the top are leading to vanishing point 1, but the alleyway in between is actually going to lead towards vanishing point number 2. So I'm going to place my ruler in line there, line it up with vanishing point 2, and I'm going to draw the line, but I'm going to stop when I hit the next building. And then the same at the top here. And then this is the same over here on the other side, so where I've got a space here, I can see that the top and the bottom of the building go towards vanishing point 2, so the alleyway lines for the top and bottom of the side of my building, this is the front, so the alleyway will show the side, are going to go to vanishing point 1. So I'm going to line up my ruler and go to vanishing point number 1. You can see now that these look a lot more 3D, so I'm just going to add those in with my other buildings. Okay, so you can see that now I've added in all of my alleyways. Now an extra thing that you could do if you really wanted to is you could change the height of some of your buildings. So for example, I could make this building here taller or shorter if I really wanted to. So what I'm going to do is show you how to do that. First of all, what I would need to do is rub out the top of the alleyway and the top of the building, which is part of the line that we drew as a guideline earlier. Then I need to extend the sides of my building upwards to the height that I want them to be. Again, I'm going to do this quite hard on my pencil, but I would recommend that you do this lightly just in case you make a mistake. So I'm going to have this one quite a bit taller. But because I now need to draw the roof here, and that is an orthogonal line, I need to join up the vanishing point with the side of the building, but it needs to be the side of the building that is furthest away from the vanishing point, so not this side, but this side. And I'm going to draw the line down until it meets the other line that I've drawn. And then I can erase the excess. And now what I can see is that this is going to overlap behind this building, just like these ones overlap here. So I'm going to draw in the alleyway, but it is going to be a bit taller. It will still meet this vanishing point over here though. Join from the corner to the vanishing point, but stop where it hits this building. And you can see now I've got one building that's a little bit taller than the others. And that would work the same if I did it on the other side as well. So I've got my buildings, I've got two that are touching each other, and then I've got the others with the alleyways. This space here and this space over here between the final building and the vanishing point, I'm just going to leave that blank. You could add in a building if you want to, but I just don't want to at the moment. The windows and the doors will be so small on there that you'll hardly be able to see them, so I'd rather just show you in more detail here. Next, I need to think about a pavement, and I also need to think about windows and doors. So to start off with my pavement, I need to extend my corner building. Now you'll see here that this building is the corner that is closest to me. It is the corner that is furthest away from both vanishing points, so the building looks bigger than these ones over here. They get smaller as they get closer to the vanishing point because they're further away. That works the same with your pavement. So I'm going to extend this line down a little bit further to mark the corner of my pavement. And I'm going to join my vanishing point 1, and I'm not going to join it right to the bottom yet. I'm going to join it a little bit further up. This is going to be the top of my pavement, and then I'm going to join it a little bit further down at the bottom there to have the curb, which is the section of the pavement that goes up. So this is the flat bit going into the buildings, and this is the curb going up, and then I can erase that bit at the bottom. Then I'm going to copy this on the other side so that it is symmetrical. And those gaps that we've left in between the buildings for the alleyways, you'll see that your pavement now goes in between the buildings. I could also add something like pavement slabs if I wanted to. So for example, for a pavement, what I might do is add in my lines of square pavement slabs. Those would work the same as the alleyway, so they need to go to the opposite vanishing point. So I'm going to do fairly large ones. But remember that the lines of each of these pavement slabs should get closer together because the pavement slabs will be smaller as they get closer to the vanishing point. Now you could measure that. You don't have to though, you can just sort of look at it by eye. So you can see I've got a big one and they're just gradually getting that bit smaller. I'm just moving my ruler and keeping it in line with the vanishing point as I go further away. Then if I wanted to add in the curb, so where the pavement meets the curb, those would be transverse lines. They would be vertical, so I would line up my ruler with the top edge of my paper and the point of the paving slab and do the vertical lines. Using my ruler for every single line, no matter how small. And I could repeat the same on the other side as well. What I'm going to do is, before we move on to showing you on the other side, I'm going to add in my windows. So you can add windows and doors using transverse lines and orthogonal lines to each of your buildings. Now, if you're above the horizon line, your windows will be pointing slightly downwards towards the vanishing point. If you're below, they'll be pointing slightly upwards, and that's the same with the door. So on this side, pointing down, pointing up. When you're drawing your windows and doors, it's important to remember that all of the orthogonal lines should go to the vanishing point, which means that if you have more than one window or door on your building, they will not always look like they're going in the same direction. They will not be perfectly parallel. They might have stranger shapes in between them, but that is just fine. So I'll give you a quick example before I finish off the details of my drawing. For some windows, I'm going to start on this side. And I'm going to draw in two transverse lines, one at the top, and then I'm going to do one larger one going from the top section to the bottom section. Then I'm going to draw similar sized lines over here, but I know that they're going to be a little bit smaller. So those are my transverse lines. I've got one window and one window. What I'm going to do now is take, similar to when you're drawing the side of a building, so like this roof here, I'm going to join the top corner of this side of my window to the vanishing point over here. But remember that it's really important that you stop your line when you meet the other side of the window. And then I'll do the same at the bottom there. Okay, and I'll erase the excess up here, but you can see that my line on the right hand side doesn't quite go down far enough, so I'm just gonna make that a little bit longer. And that's my window. Then I have this one down here, so this is exactly the same, furthest point down towards the vanishing point, and the same on this side. And erase the excess. That's my two windows. And then for a door, it's very, very similar. I've already got the bottom of my door here because it's the bottom of the building. So I'm just going to decide, I think I'm going to put the door roughly there. A vertical line. I can line up my ruler with the top of my paper to help me if I want to. Another vertical line, and then I just need to join that up to the vanishing point, so the furthest point here to there, and that's my door. I can now add windows and doors to the rest of my buildings across the entire scene. Okay, so you can see I've drawn in the outlines of my windows and my doors. I've added in the pavement detail along here. So at this stage, there's a number of things that you could do. You could add in some road markings, you could add some objects in the windows or the doors, you could maybe make the windows look even more 3D, you could make some of the windows look circular. There's a number of things that you can do. It's very much up to you depending on what you wanted to add. For example, maybe a sign to show a shop or something like that. I'm very quickly just going to show you a couple of things that you could try if you really want to challenge yourself. First of all, we're going to look at how to turn a window into a circular window. You can see this window here is drawn as a rectangle. It's just slightly taller than a square. I'm going to use this as a guide to sketch in a circular window. I know that my window should touch roughly halfway between each line, so I'm going to sketch in lightly from corner to corner so that I can see where the middle of my circle is. I can see that that will be the middle of my window, so I'm going to draw lines up to the top and bottom so I can see that this is the middle point horizontally, and then here again, and I will line this up with the vanishing point. So this point to the vanishing point, and I can see that this is where the middle section is. So I'm going to erase most of that so that it doesn't confuse me, and just keep the sections that show me where the midpoints are. So I can see I've got the middle of this line and this line and the middle of that line and that line. And now I'm going to use those points to sketch a circle. I'm going to start from one point and curve my pencil towards the next one. Now, this is not going to be perfect, so I'm just going to try my best, curving round to the next one, curving down and round to the next one, and then going from this point, curving round to the one at the bottom here. Your circle will not be a perfect circle. It should look like a squash circle. So it should look like an ellipse or an oval because it should be getting smaller as it goes towards the vanishing point. Now that I've drawn in my circle, I can erase the outside edge of the window that I had drawn as a guide. I can erase the other little markers in here, so I can erase the horizon line and my midway marker points. And if I wanted to make this look 3D, because I'm looking at it from this direction here, I will be able to see the inside ledge of this side of the window, not this side, this side. So I'm going to sketch in a very small window ledge just inside here. Now because this part of the window is below the line, I'll be able to see a little bit of the bottom edge, but not very much of it. And because this section is above the horizon line, I'll be able to see a little bit inside the top there. And that is my 3D window with a ledge that is circular. If I wanted to make a rectangular window look 3D and it was one of these on this side here, it would be the same, except I would use the opposite windowsill. So because I'm looking from this direction towards that way, I would see this window ledge. So I can just use my ruler and mark a thin line just inside there. And because this window is above the horizon line, I will see the top inside window ledge. And again, that needs to go towards the vanishing point. You can see there's a crossover just here. What this is showing me is that there's kind of a corner of the windowsill. So I need to draw that in. I need to go from this top corner towards the vanishing point over here. So vanishing point number 2 on the opposite side, and draw a diagonal line. And then I can erase the excess lines. I might need to redraw some of that back in, just in case if your eraser is too big for these smaller details, you might find that bit a little bit tricky. And you can see there I've got my window and window ledge. If it was down here, it'd be exactly the same, but instead of seeing the top inside ledge, I would see the bottom inside ledge. And then for the doorway, I'm going to imagine that there's not a door there, because I could just draw a door, and I'm going to imagine that I can see straight into the room. If I could see straight into the room, I'd be able to see the back line of where the wall meets the floor inside that room, and that line would be going from this bottom corner. So I'm going to join the bottom corner of the building to the vanishing point, but I'm only going to draw that, so it's going to this opposite vanishing point here, but I'm only going to draw that line inside the doorway. And you can see there's a floor and a wall of inside the building. So you can do that indoors, you could do that in windows, you could add ledges inside the doors if you wanted to, and that just makes your scene look a little bit more 3D. So I'm going to add in those 3D details now for you to show you. Okay, so as you can see, I've made all of my doors and windows 3D now. I've got my windowsills and my door kind of showing the inside of a room. I could add that into some of the windows. So for example, this window here that's really low down, I could add in a floor line inside that room as well. Just like that, and it would look like they're meeting up in the back corner. I could add some objects into here. So just remember that tip of using a rectangular shape to help you create a window that is circular. That would work for any other circular shapes as well. You can now go on to adding shading and texture and any other details that you wanted to add. So I hope that this video was useful to you. As you can see, my scene gets smaller and thinner as it goes towards each of the vanishing points. I've got my transverse lines that are these vertical lines here, and then I've also got my orthogonal lines, so that's the roofs of my building, the bottom of the buildings, the tops and bottoms of windows and doors. They all are leading to one of the two vanishing points. So give that a go, let me know how you get on, and I'm really excited to see what kind of street scenes you come up with. Have a lovely day. Bye!